Welcome to A-List Stories. Tonight, we'll listen to the tale of Faerion Fairborn. Close your eyes and listen carefully. Once upon a time, and if it were not so, it would not be told, in the days when the poplars bore pears and the bears would wrestle with their shadows, when wolves would clasp lambs by the neck and kiss them as brothers, when the flea was shod with 99 pounds of iron upon one foot and leapt into the heavens to bring us stories. Yes, in those days, long and far away, there reigned a great and noble king named Eldarion, and his queen, Mireniel, fair as moonlight upon silver water. Though they were young and beautiful, a shadow lay upon their hearts, for no child had come to bless their palace halls. They sought wisdom in every corner of the realm, from healers and philosophers, from stargazers and soothsayers, yet none could give them what they desired most: a child. At last, hearing of a wise old hermit who dwelt in a nearby village, the king sent messengers to summon him. But the hermit replied, "He who has need must come himself." So the king and queen set forth, attended by lords and knights and faithful servants, until they came to the humble dwelling of the old man. Seeing them from afar, he came forth to greet them and said, "Welcome, O King Eldarion. Yet beware, the desire that burns within you shall bring you sorrow." But the king answered, "I did not come to hear prophecy, wise one, but to seek remedy. If you have any potion that might grant us a child, give it to me." The old hermit nodded slowly. "I have such a potion," he said. "But know this, you shall have but one child, a son, fair and brave as the morning star. He shall be named Faerion Fairborn, and you shall have no joy of him, for his destiny will not be yours to keep." The king and queen took the draft and returned to their palace filled with hope. Before many days had passed, Queen Mireniel felt the stirring of new life within her. All the kingdom rejoiced. Bells rang, trumpets sang, and laughter filled the courts. Yet before the hour of birth, the child began to weep in his mother's womb, a cry so haunting that no healer could quiet him. The king promised him all the treasures of the world, if only he would cease. "Hush, my son," said King Eldarion, "and I shall give you this kingdom, and that one too. Be still, my child, and I shall give you for a bride any princess you desire." But the unborn child did not cease his crying. At last, the desperate king said, "Hush now, my dearest one, and I shall grant you youth everlasting and life undying." Then the child grew quiet, and soon after he was born, radiant as sunrise. The trumpets and drums of the kingdom sounded, and the people rejoiced for a full week in celebration. As the boy grew, so too did his brilliance. Every lesson that another child learned in a year, he mastered in a month. The king's heart swelled with pride, and the realm rejoiced, saying, "We shall have a ruler as wise and glorious as the ancient Solomon." But as years passed, Faerion's spirit grew restless. He wandered the halls, silent and thoughtful, a shadow dimming the light in his bright eyes. Then, on the day he turned 15, while the king feasted with his nobles, Faerion rose and spoke. "Father, the time has come for you to give me what you promised at my birth." At these words, King Eldarion grew pale and sorrowful. "My son," he said, "how can I grant you such a thing? Youth without age and life without death, these are but words, not gifts a mortal king may bestow. I promised only to still your crying." But Faerion answered, "If you cannot give what you have sworn, then I must go into the wide world and seek it for myself." Then the king, the queen, and all the nobles fell to their knees, pleading with him to stay. "Your father grows old," they said. "Stay, and we shall make you king. We will bring you the fairest bride beneath the sun." But Faerion's resolve was like stone. Seeing he could not be swayed, King Eldarion gave his blessing with tears, and the palace stirred with the sound of preparation for a long and fateful journey. When all was readied for his departure, Faerion descended to the royal stables, where the king's proudest steeds stamped and neighed, their manes gleaming like braided silk. He walked among them, testing each one by its tail, but whichever horse he touched fell trembling to the ground, unable to bear his strength. At last, as he turned to leave, his gaze fell upon a shadowed corner of the stable, where an old ragged horse stood, thin, scabbed and weary, its eyes dull with age. Faerion, moved by some hidden instinct, went to it and laid a hand upon its tail. Then the creature stirred, turned its head, and spoke in a voice both deep and kind. "What do you command, my master?" "Praise be to the heavens that one worthy has laid hand upon me once more. For long have I waited, I, who was once the steed of kings." The horse straightened, and though still frail, there was fire in its gaze. Faerion told him all, of his birth, of his father's vow, and of his quest for youth everlasting and life undying. The horse replied, "If your heart is steadfast, you shall have your chance. But you must first ask your father for his sword, his spear, his bow and quiver, and the garments he wore in his youth. And as for me, tend me with your own hands for 6 weeks. Feed me barley boiled in milk, and groom me yourself. Do this, and I shall bear you beyond the reach of mortals." Faerion did as the steed instructed. He went before King Eldarion and said, "Father, grant me your weapons of youth, the sword, the bow, and the armour you wore when the world was young." The king, though saddened, gave his command that every royal chest be opened. For 3 days and 3 nights Faerion searched through silken garments and jewelled scabbards until at last, deep within an ancient coffer, he found the long-forgotten arms, rusted, dull, and wrapped in dust. With his own hands, he polished and tended them until they shone like mirrors, and all the while he cared for the frail horse as for a brother. For 6 long weeks he bathed it, brushed it, and fed it barley steeped in milk. And when the last dawn came, a marvel was wrought. The horse shuddered mightily, and all its sores and scabs fell away like withered leaves. In its place stood a creature of living flame, a stallion strong and sleek, its coat shining as molten gold, its eyes like emeralds in the sun, and upon its flanks 4 wings of silver and sapphire, vast and swift as the wind itself. Faerion, awestruck, whispered, "In 3 days we ride." The horse neighed, tossing its silver mane. "Master, I am ready even now," it said. 3 days later, when dawn spread its rosy fingers across the sky, the kingdom was wrapped in mourning. For though it was a day of destiny, it was also a day of farewell. Faerion, clad in shining mail and bearing his father's sword, stood before the palace gates astride his winged steed. He kissed his parents' hands and bowed before their tears. The nobles, soldiers, and servants knelt around him, begging him to stay. "Do not go, Prince Faerion. No mortal has sought such peril and returned." But he smiled gently, spurred his horse, and in a gust of wind and thunder of wings, he was gone, leaving behind only the echo of sorrow and the faint glimmer of hope. Behind him followed carts laden with provisions, gold, and 200 loyal guards whom King Eldarion had sent to protect his son. Yet when they reached the edge of the wilderness, Faerion divided his riches among them and said, "Go home, my friends. From here I travel alone." And so they wept and turned back, while Faerion Fairborn rode eastward, into the vast and whispering lands where men's footsteps fade and only legends walk. Faerion rode for many days and nights, through forests that sang in forgotten tongues, across meadows silvered by dew, over mountains whose crowns touched the stars. His heart was fearless, for the enchanted steed bore him swifter than the wind. At last they came upon a vast and blackened plain, a land where no blade of grass grew, where the air shimmered with heat and sorrow. The horse slowed, pawing the ground uneasily. "Beware, my master," it said. "This is the realm of the Gehonwyn, an ancient witch who devours all who cross her land. None have passed her alive, but if you have courage, we may yet outwit her." Faerion's eyes shone. "I have come too far to turn aside now." So they pressed on. But scarcely had they reached the middle of the plain when the earth began to shake, and a storm of dust rose upon the horizon. Out of the haze came a monstrous shape, the Gehonwyn herself. She was terrible, her hair like matted iron, her wings the colour of night, her voice the cry of crows. She swooped down, shrieking, "Who dares tread my fields, scorching them not with fear?" Faerion drew his father's sword and answered, "I, Faerion Fairborn, son of Eldarion the king, who seek youth everlasting and life undying. I do not fear you," the Gehonwyn roared, and her talons struck like lightning. But the horse reared, breathing flame from its nostrils, and together they met her in fierce combat. For 3 days and 3 nights the battle raged. The plain thundered beneath their fury. At last, the Gehonwyn fell, her wings shattered, her body cast upon the stones. She lay gasping and cried, "Spare me, Faerion, and I shall serve you faithfully. Kill me, and you shall never find your way beyond this cursed land." The prince, noble of heart, lowered his sword. "Then rise, and speak truth. What must I do to pass?" Grateful yet cunning, the Gehonwyn said, "Beyond my realm lies the land of my sister, Scoriel, who is far stronger than I. If you would reach the Valley of Youth and Deathlessness, you must first escape her grasp. Take this golden feather from my wing. When danger nears, cast it into the air, and I shall come to your aid." Faerion took the feather and rode on, the sun sinking behind him as the scorched plain fell silent, and the road ahead wound into shadow. Faerion and his steed journeyed long through lands few mortals had ever seen. They passed fields where trees wept amber tears, and rivers sang in voices like crystal bells. But as they drew near the border of the next realm, a shadow began to darken the sky. The horse stamped and neighed. "Master," it said, "we are nearing the dominion of Scoriel the Devourer, sister to the Gehonwyn. Her hunger is endless. She lies in wait among the mountains, feasting on every living thing that passes by." Faerion straightened in the saddle. "Then we must face her as we did the last, with courage and cunning." They entered a valley walled by cliffs black as iron. No birds flew there, no wind stirred, only silence and the stench of old decay. Then, from behind a ridge, a roar tore the heavens, and Scoriel herself came forth, her hair a crown of serpents, her arms ending in claws of bronze, her eyes burning like coals in a furnace. The ground quaked beneath her steps. "Who trespasses in my mountains?" she thundered. "Who dares to disturb my eternal feast?" Faerion raised his sword, gleaming like a shard of dawn. "I am Faerion Fairborn, son of Eldarion the king, and I seek the land of youth everlasting and life undying. Let me pass, Scoriel, or taste my blade." The witch laughed, the sound shaking the cliffs. "None may pass who draw breath. Prepare to die, mortal." Then the battle began, fierce and thunderous. Scoriel hurled stones and flame. Faerion met them with his shining shield. At last, when the struggle grew dire, the prince remembered the golden feather. He cast it into the air, and instantly, from the storm of dust, came the Gionwyn on winds of fire, her eyes blazing. "Sister, stay thy hand," she cried. "This one has spared me. Touch him not." The two witches glared at each other, their wrath shaking the heavens. But blood is blood, and in the end, Scoriel lowered her claws. "So be it," she said, her voice like thunder fading. "Pass, Faerion. Beyond my mountains lies a valley bright as dawn. There you shall find what you seek. But heed me, once you cross its gate, no road shall lead you home again." The prince bowed his head, undaunted. "If such is the price, I shall pay it." He rode on. The horses' hooves struck sparks as they climbed the last ridge, and before them opened a sight beyond mortal dreaming. A vast green valley, bathed in eternal light. There, the air shimmered with youth. The grass never withered. The streams sang forever, and every leaf gleamed like emerald glass. At the far edge stood a great gate of crystal, its archway carved with runes that glowed like stars. "Behold, my master," said the horse softly, "the threshold of the realm without death. Once we cross, all mortal ties shall fall away." Faerion dismounted and stood in silence for a moment, gazing at the realm beyond, golden, endless, and still. Then he spoke. "So be it. The world behind me fades like a dream. Before me lies the promise of eternity." And hand in hand with his fate, Faerion Fairborn passed through the gate. When Faerion Fairborn stepped through the crystal gate, a hush fell upon the world behind him, and a new light blossomed before his eyes. The air was pure as song, the earth itself breathed peace. Wherever he looked, flowers unfurled beneath his gaze, and the trees whispered with voices soft as harps. There was no sun, no moon, only a golden radiance, as if dawn had chosen never to end. Time did not flow there, it merely shimmered, like water caught forever in sunlight. The people of that realm came forth to greet him, beings tall and fair, robed in white and silver. Their hair glowed like starlight, and their eyes held the calm of deep waters untouched by wind. They spoke gently, their words lilting like music. "Welcome, Faerion Fairborn, son of Eldarion. Long have we awaited one who could pass the gates unafraid." Then came their queen, the princess of eternal youth. Her name, was Illyrian, and her beauty was beyond mortal measure. Her hair fell like rivers of light. Her smile could make the flowers bloom anew. When she beheld Faerion, she said, "You have come seeking youth without age and life without death. Here it is. And here shall you dwell, if your heart is steadfast." Faerion bowed, his heart at once filled and emptied, for he knew he stood at the end of all striving. From that day on, he and his horse lived in bliss among the immortal ones. No pain touched him, no shadow darkened his spirit. He hunted in the endless meadows, rode beneath skies that never dimmed, and shared in the feasts of Illyrian's court, where the music never ceased, and joy was as air itself. Days passed, or perhaps centuries, none could tell. In that land, time was but a forgotten tale. Yet one evening, as Faerion wandered by a quiet lake whose surface mirrored the stars of eternity, a thought stirred in his heart. Faint at first, then clear. How fares my father, King Eldarion? Does Queen Mereniel still walk the gardens I once knew? Do the towers of my home still shine at dawn? He turned to Illyrian and spoke. "Beloved, though joy fills this place, a longing stirs within me. Permit me to return, if only for a little while, to see the land where I was born." The princess grew pale, as though a shadow had passed across her light. "Faerion," she said softly, "none who leaves this realm may return unchanged. The moment you cross the gate, time, which has slept these countless ages, shall awaken, and it will claim you as its own. Think well before you go." But Faerion could not still the ache of memory. "My heart will know no rest," he said, "until I have looked once more upon my father's kingdom." Then Illyrian wept, her tears falling like dew upon his hands. "If it must be so, take with you your horse, for he alone may bear you across the bounds of this world. But heed this, touch not the earth of men when you return, or all you have gained shall wither." She gave him her blessing and a strand of her shining hair, to remind him of what he left behind. So Faerion mounted his steed once more, and with a heavy heart turned back toward the crystal gate, toward the world of men, and the shadow of time that waited beyond. The gates of the deathless realm opened once more, and Faerion Fairborn rode forth into the mortal world. Behind him, the valley shone like a dream fading at sunrise. Before him stretched the wilderness of men, vast, empty, strange. He rode in silence. The land was no longer as he remembered. The forests had thickened into wild and tangled woods. The rivers had changed their courses. The very mountains wore new faces. He journeyed on for what seemed but a few days, yet the world around him whispered of ages gone by. At last he came upon a field where once had stood his father's palace. But now the field was barren, and the palace gone. No towers rose, no gardens bloomed. Only weeds and broken stones slept beneath the sky. Faerion dismounted and gazed about in wonder. "Surely I have lost my way," he murmured. "Here should stand the gates of Eldarion's court, the fountains, the marble halls." He rode to the nearest village and asked the people he met, "Good folk, can you tell me of King Eldarion and Queen Mereniel?" The villagers stared, astonished. "We have never heard such names," they said. "Perhaps you speak of the kings of legend, those who ruled before the dawn of memory." Faerion's heart trembled. He realized then that centuries, perhaps millennia, had passed since he last beheld the world of men. He turned back toward the place where his palace had stood, and there, among the ruins, he found a stone half buried in earth, inscribed with faint, time-worn runes. Here once reigned King Eldarion and Queen Merenial, who vanished into the mists of ages. At these words, sorrow overcame him. He sank to his knees and wept, tears of love, of loss, of longing for what was no more. His horse bent its noble head beside him. "Master," it said softly, "we must go. The world of men is not ours any more." But Faerion could not bear it. He reached down, and as he did, his hand brushed the earth. In that instant, the curse of time awoke. The radiance that clung to him flickered. His golden hair turned silver, then white. His face, untouched for endless years, withered and aged. The weight of all forgotten centuries fell upon him in a breath. The horse neighed in anguish, rearing high, and both vanished, swallowed by mist. Only the whisper of wind remained, and the faint glimmer of a single golden hair that the breeze carried toward the sunset, perhaps Ilyrion's, perhaps his own. And so ends the tale of Faerion Fairborn, who sought youth without age and life without death. Some say that even now, in the hour before dawn, if you wander near those ancient ruins, you may hear the echo of a horse's hooves and a voice calling softly, "Father, Mother, I have come home." I hope you enjoyed our A-list story. Till next time, be smart and kind.